Hi everyone, my name is Kartik and my channel is about mental models. In this video, I'm going to be talking about inflation. Believe it or not, this is a mental model too. I was going to cover this mental model at some point in the future, but considering the UK inflation figures have just come out last Wednesday on the 22nd of May, I think it's more interesting to do this talk now and return to the Systems Thinking mini-series next week. In this video, I'm going to refer to the UK Consumer Price Index, so CPI figure, which is the headline figure that is being talked about. Some basic facts to start off with. Inflation is a percentage which shows the change in prices for goods and services over a period of time. In the UK, the Office of National Statistics, the ONS, publishes the percentage figure or the CPI rate on a monthly basis. And on Wednesday, the rate for April 2024 was 2.3%. This has dropped, or the technical term is slowed down from March 2024 when it was 3.2%. So just to add, the rate has been slowing since the beginning of the year. And so in January, so these are all 2024 numbers, in January it was 4%. Then in February it went to 3.4%. In March, as I've just said, 3.2%. And now in April, 2.3%. So that's what the numbers have been like since the beginning of the year. Now, this period of time I mentioned for these numbers is 12 months. What this means is that the prices of goods and services, for the latest month, so let's say April, are being compared with the prices for the same month a year ago. So if inflation is 2.3%, it doesn't mean that the price has stayed 2.3% more expensive over the whole year. It's only a month-to-month comparison. The price has moved around all over the place in between. So as you can see in March, February, January, there are differences. So 2.3% here, 2.3% in April 2024 means that the index number for April 2024 is 2.3% higher than the index number for April 2023. An index number is a number which reflects a price or prices that can then be used for comparisons with each other given a base index number which is 100. So, example, if a price has moved from £1 to £2, and let's say that £1 is the base price, then the index number for £1 would be 100. So that's the index. And the index number for £2 would be 2 divided by 1 times 100, which is equal to 200%, or the index number would be 200. Now let's say that we had the same price move of £1 to £2, but the base price was 50p. In this case, the calculation for the £2 would be, so I'll just put 50p, I'll put £1 and I'll put £2. The calculation for the £2 would be 2 divided by 0.5 times 100, which would be 400%. In other words, the index number would be 400. The index number for 50p, because that's the base price, would be 100, and a similar calculation for £1 would also be taken, so 2 divided by 1, so times 100, and so the index number for £1 would be 200. So that's how, even though you have the same price move, if your base price is different, your index numbers are slightly different. The next point is that inflation isn't calculated on one thing or one price. I know I've looked at £1 to £2 in this example, but there are 12 groups such as food, clothing, transport, alcohol, and education. So just like that, there are 12 groups, and under these groups there are further subgroups. So food would have meat, bread, fish, fruit. Alcohol would have spirits, wine and beer. So the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, collects all of these prices from all of these subgroups and reflects these prices as an index number, this thing here. And so they change the pounds and pence into the 102, 103 numbers. And it does this for each subgroup and uses a weighted average to calculate the group index number, and again has a weighted average calculation to calculate the index number for the month. And then it compares that index number with the one it had previously 12 months ago, and there you get the percentage. Now, as I've mentioned just a moment ago, there is a weighted average. So there are some weightings. The weightings are different for each group. So food and transport would have a higher weighting than, say, alcohol and education figures. So they would have less of a weighting. And essentially, we end up with one index number for each month. And if that, let's say if that index number was 100 in April 2023, then if this follows the 2.3% April month's inflation, then the index number for April 2024 would be 102.3. So if this index number is reflecting a single price of something, then what we're saying is that something which cost 100 pence in April 2023 would cost 102.3p in April 2024, or £1 and 2.3 pence. Similarly, in March, it's the same thing. March 2024, if the inflation with the inflation at 3.2%, if something was 100 pence in March 2023, and if it follows the 12-month March inflation rate, it would be 103.2 pence in March 2024. Now, I've been talking in 12-month time periods, but there are month-on-month comparisons too, and the difference between, say, March and April seems like it's a drop of 0.9%. So 3.2 going to 2.3 is 0.9%. But that would be incorrect. Yes, the 12-month inflation rate is going down, but the month-on-month inflation amount is actually increasing. And to see that, you need to check the index numbers, the actual index numbers, and do the comparison, the month-on-month comparison. So here's how to do it. So if we have March and April for 2023 and 2024, the March number is, say, 128.9, and then it is the April number for 2023 is 130.4, and for 2024 the figures are 133.0 and 133.5. These numbers, these index numbers, have come from the ONS's website. And so if we go down this way and do a comparison of these two numbers, you get your 3.2% for March and you get your 2.3% for April. But if we go this way, then the calculation is 133.5 divided by 133 minus 1, and that gives you a 0.38% increase. And so as you can see, inflation has fallen this way, but going across this way it's actually increasing. And for the same period last year, just to finish this calculation off, that was a 1.2% increase. So you can see that even though the 12-month rate has slowed, month-on-month inflation is up. Taking things a little further, what does this mean? Because recently, in October 2022, inflation was 11.1%. So surely things are getting better. Now the rate is 2.3%. Surely such a big drop from 11.1 down to 2.3% means something good. Well, yes and no. Unfortunately, it's not all good. The reality is that it's still an increase, but just a smaller increase. So in October 2022, the rate was 11.1%. That means if something cost £1 in October 2021, so let's say it's 100 pence, and let's say, let's forget the weighted average and the index prices. Let's say that it was, inflation is just one number now, and we are just modeling inflation across the years with this one number. So it was £1 in October 2021, then with 11.1% in October 2022, that item would cost 111p. And then fast forward to the rate that came out a few days ago, April 2024, with its 2.3%, that thing now costs 118 pence. So we have gone from £1 here to £1.18. The jump has gone from approximately 11 pence to approximately 7 pence. And so it's a smaller jump, but it's still an increase. So something that is worth £1.18 now was worth 100 pence or £1. And so prices are still rising, but the jump is a little bit smaller. So it hasn't been another 11p jump. Now you might actually look at these two numbers and do a quick calculation that 118 divided by 111 is roughly 6%, not 2.3%. And therefore this number should be a little bit less. This 118p should be a little less. But again, what you need to do is compare the index prices from October 2022 and April 2024, not merely the 12-month inflation rates. And so you can see that it's a smaller jump, but prices are still rising. The things are still expensive, more expensive than what they were in October 2021. If we go back a little bit further to May 2021, then if we say, just do a small graph, this is May 2021, and this is now April 2024. If we go back to May 2021, what we've seen is something like that. And this bit here, this reduction here, this is the 2.3%. But if we go back to May 2021, in actual fact, you've got all of this increase. And this here is about 20%. And so since May 2021, which is not a long time ago, prices have risen by 20%. Now, another separate point is that the inflation is an average of the groups. You remember that I said that there is a weighted average. And so we have an average of 2.3%. And it can mean that one of the groups, such as food, may have increased by 8%, and alcohol might have reduced by 3.4%, and let's say the others have just sort of increased by 2.3%. And then if you total that up and divide it by 5, let's just say there are 5 items, your average will be, let's say there's no weightings, all weightings are equal, but you've got these 5 items. And the point I'm trying to make is your average is your 2.3%, that's your monthly rate. And food has gone up by 8%. Now, your inflation figure is 2.3%, but if you don't drink alcohol, then those price decreases won't apply to you. You would be paying a higher price for your food, you'd be paying a higher price for your transport, for your clothing, for your education, but you wouldn't necessarily be seeing any offset through the reduction on alcohol. And so the 2.3% may not actually fully apply to you. Your inflation might be a little bit higher, or will be a little bit higher in this case, and you'd be adding up the 8s and the 2.3 increases, but the alcohol wouldn't be something that features for you. And so going back to taking this analogy and sort of going back to this sort of 20% scenario and looking at the monthly average price index where there have been increases of a few pennies every month, that's what's happening. Going back to even further to July 2015, when the index was 100, so let's say it's just modeled on one price, we've had some of the largest month-on-month increases in the recent past. Between March and April 2022, we had an increase of 2.9p. Between September and October 2022, we had an increase of 2.4p. And for Jan and February 2023, it was 1.5 pence. So what was 100 pence back in July 2015 has now increased to 133.5p. It's the index number, but we're going back to the base of 100, so we can say that's pennies as well. In April 2024, it's gone up to 133.5, which is an eye-watering 33.5% increase. Of course, this is over a longer period of nearly a decade, but it shows how prices have risen on average. And you may be thinking that prices generally increase over time, and a 1p or 2p sort of increase are not really that big. But if I increase the average price every month by half a pence, so that's month 1, and I'm increasing it by half a pence all the way through, so that's not even a penny, that's half a pence. Then in 12 months' time, that would be a 6% increase, a 6 pence increase. So if the average prices were 100p, that would be £1 6 pence in month 12. And you have, with a half a penny increase each month, you have 6% inflation. So when prices go up by a penny or two and consistently keep on going up, then ultimately we get to an 11.1% inflation rate scenario. Now, I don't want to go into the causes of inflation, such as the supply of money, or even how to curb inflation within interest rates and deflationary policies, because this is about the mental model. And what I really wanted to keep this about was the headline numbers, how to interpret them, and what they could potentially mean for you. And that's therefore all for this video. I hope you liked this video. If you did, then please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And whilst you're here, why not check out these 2 videos on the Dunning-Kruger effect and multiplying by 0. And I will see you again in the next video, where I will continue with the Systems Thinking mini-series. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.